How we doing?
Yeah.
That sounded very sincere. Hey, all right, I like that. Well, welcome to a celebration of literature and living writers. I'm Megan Marshall. I'm the director of the Hugh C. Hyde Living Writers series. And tonight we continue our fabulous acknowledgement of National Poetry Month. Yay! Yes! With an award-winning poet and translator who is sure to make y'all forget about those impending final essays and exams. Good stuff. Yeah, right. But before I introduce them officially, I do want to thank those who have made this series possible, and that includes all of our friends here at Love Library, Markle Tumlin, John Newcahall, Laurel Bliss, and Rebecca Williamson. I also want to thank the Department of English and Comparative Literature and the MFA program in Creative Writing for their continued support of the series, as well as our friends from Aztec Shops, including Michael Ramirez and our friends who are selling books over there in the corner. And lastly, it's important to acknowledge the space that we are privileged to share this evening. For millennia, the Kumeyaay people have been a part of this land. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations. And as members of the SDSU community, we acknowledge and celebrate this legacy. All right, one last little reminder, if you have yet to do so, please silence your cell phones or unwrap any cough drops that you may have, loud, yeah, exactly. And know that the event is being recorded, but don't worry, all we see is this. All right, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce our featured reader. C.D. Eskilson is a trans, non-binary poet, editor, and literary translator. Their work appears in Kenyon Review, The Offing, Pleiades, Hayden's Ferry Review, Ninth Letter, Passages North, and other journals. They are a recipient of the C.D. Wright Academy of American Poets Prize and have been nominated for Best of the Net, Best New Poets, and Pushcart Prize. Their debut poetry collection, Scream Queen, which they'll be reading from tonight, and again, which is on sale over there in the corner, wink, wink, is just recently out from Acre Books. Modern Woman, C.D.'s translation of Finnish-Swedish poet Edith Södergran, groundbreaking 1916 poetry collection, will be published by World Poetry Books in 2026. C.D. is poetry co-editor at Split Lit Magazine and a member of the Beloit Poetry Journal reading team. C.D. was previously a poetry editor at Exposition Review, where they were also a board member. They also worked as the series coordinator for the Open Mouth Literary Center. C.D. earned their MFA from the University of Arkansas, where they are awarded the Walton Family Fellowship in Poetry, the James T. Whitehead Award in Poetry, the James E. and Ellen Wadley Roper Fellowship in Creative Writing, and the Lily Peter Fellowship in Translation. And perhaps once, most importantly, they were in a punk band. C.D.'s debut collection, Scream Queen, has been lauded as whip-smart, funny, tender, and lyrically inventive. Poems that scream in their pauses, silences, surprising variation of forms, and sharply forged verbs. What struck me was the way in which C.D.'s work asserts, like Whitman, I contain multitudes. How the subjects here proclaim past a reductive binary and speak not just of personal and historical violences and persecution, but of joy, of love, of liberation, and community. This time we'll keep running past the waves, over them, in spite of them, stay at each other's sides. As I mentioned last week, part of National Poetry Month is celebrating those who have worked to spread its beauty and to remind us of all it does make happen. As Chen Chen says, to not cede the entirety of language to advertisers, corporations, politicians, oligarchs, anyone who uses language for power rather than inhabiting language as a mortal, joyful, earthly, sensory, sensual, silly, serious practice. And C.D. is most definitely one of these poets. And we are so honored to have them here with us tonight. So please join me in giving a warm welcome to C.D. Eskilson.
Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Megan. That was very, very sweet. Yeah, anytime a Chen quote is mentioned in my proximity, I feel very inadequate. So thank you. Thank you to the library also. This is a really nice space. I'm excited to read in here. But yeah, so I'm me, I'm CD, and I'm going to be reading some poems from Scream Queen, which just came out a little over a month ago, which I'm still trying to like process. And then I'm going to read some translations from Edith Södergran from that book that's coming out next year, and then some poems. So kind of go on a different tour of different kinds of writing. But yeah, so something, if you're not familiar with the collection, is a lot of the poems interrogate, sort of talk about, investigate, and kind of create meaning out of horror films in relationship to transness, to queerness, to chronic illness. So sort of investigating what it means to call something a monster, think of something as horrifying, and sort of what can we do with that language around monstrosity to survive, to have the life that we want to have. So the first poem I'm going to read is called On Witchcraft. Statues of Hecate show a triple-headed goddess, a being far too myriad for just one mouth. There's a longing for what's lost in shrines, engraved into a frieze, what's held inside a myth. I suddenly knew defiance early on. Their buzz cuts, constant binder, new name at the bank and license photo. F walks through forests, filling clearings with their beard. Shows how to curse a compromise, pull the moon down with both hands. Just how enclosures took the peasantry from commons, witch hunts took the women from their bodies, and gleaned from Federici. I want to be the open field and commune, the strength that would provide, to come in a word like them and reclaim multitude as gender. In cinema, the witch ends as stubbled sisters levitate through pines, their chorus claiming night. I order my capri pants, scroll through rows of summer dresses, text photos to a friend and hope to find my Sabbath field. Reach out from disenchantment, still unsure of what to grasp. I scour terms for remedy that can also mean poison. Land on pharmacon. The possibility F shows me, though how little feels like mine, my chest beneath the pressing stones. A pride event where people call me Little F, so quickly lose my name. The rock soon disappears me. Each horror movie archives resistance. The autopsy of Jane Doe shows how a body won't be dominated. Skull split, drained, still won't open. Her hexes pry mortician's skin. I study and take notes. Is this dysphoria revolt or just reaction? My ankles chafe, unducking stool. I stalk beaches, pockets lined with gold and lead, draw shapes into the sand to summon what's enough. Fix my lipstick, fairy men, stretch my spine into the sky. I conjure what I can't contain. Do we, I really have to ask this now because I brought it up in a class I was teaching once and then it made me feel really old. But y'all know what Powerpuff Girls is? I was like, dang. So this poem is about a character from Powerpuff Girls called Him, who is sort of this Mephistopheles-like character, this like red devil, the typical devil figure who's sort of the queer, gender ambiguous antagonist, sometimes in the series. So this is called Update on Hymns and Powerpuff Girls. Of course, I fangirled seeing him work at a coffee shop on Wilshire. Can't say I wasn't gawking at this misfit Mephistopheles, this idol of my odd duck childhood. Their pink tulle scrunched beneath the khaki apron, thigh high swapped for tennis shoes. I tried to play cool online, but him kept chipping mugs and floating orders, popped an oat milk carton with their claw. People snickered, mimicked their falsetto walking to the sugar station. Him reminded me of me, something queer and clumsy that attracted too much notice, a target on two fronts. Reminded me of guessing what the joke's about and making that a game. Him's beard poked through the hairnet that they wore. They shattered someone's lemonade, and shards ring on the ground. I wanted to help, fetch oven mitts, but thought this might be patronizing. Wanted to repay their showing me the layer crimson, struck maniacally, craft gender out of points and curves. I feared distracting them. Him spilled espresso at a bar, that got on someone's pants. They kept apologizing, same as when I asked my boss to use my new name, and he wouldn't. The sorry added to my hands. I tried to make it easy for them by getting bottled juice, tried not to stare, made small talk about weapons, which worked until I almost walked off without pain. Him laughed, at least. Each time I went back, I hoped to see them there, but never did. I hoped him wasn't fired. I swear I saw them once while backing out my car. A black North Face above an apron, salmon ruffle peeking out. That's enough for me to know, I think. It's enough to know they're there. And another sort of theme question the book navigates is just this idea of siblinghood, of what it means to have a sibling. I think something I realized very recently is this idea, this person has, in some ways, might be one of the closest sort of relationships to your past, or to give context for where you came from, but then also in some ways is very different. So it's like where those departures and where those sort of moments where y'all's lives or intersect is always fascinating to me. This is recipe for roasted broccoli. When my sibling says they don't feel subject to our father's mental illness, I focus on cleaving through the broccoli stalks, separating florets from the trunk, dousing them in salt and olive oil. I want to question the stem severed from its leaves, but this thread tingles when I start tossing with my hands. My sibling postulates how ordinary growing up was, how little we known about what's heritable until later, until trying to form relationships and being too much every time. How our narratives eschew slipping grips and siren wails, my sibling says. I watch my broccoli in the oven as I nod, trying to toss the striped green artery into the kitchen trash. I miss and hit the wall. I want a gesture that can prove them right. I want to glue the front door lock our father drove back to review every morning before work, to sand the floorboard his obsession tried to level. Last month, I tried cleansing sorry from my language, but didn't last the afternoon. I tried until it rained and knew whose fault it was. I knew our father would have folded long before me, would have blamed himself for gravity, would have safety pinned the drops back on the clouds. Something also sort of on this theme of siblings is I think a lot about sort of the parallels. I have one sibling. My dad has one as well. My sibling and I are both trans and sort of came from a very sort of affirming place with our parents. That wasn't necessarily the case for my father and his brother. I think something examining hereditary lineage, stuff like that. I was thinking what things could have happened or what things sort of were deferred because of different circumstances. So this is Ghost Story with my uncle. Boy ghost hunts for sweetness, soon finds stubble, breaking hips, and smoke blue swells of back seats. Wailing starts without a sound, an afterlife on knees behind the gym. His legend soon spreads. Boy ghost meets shoulder bump and bruising stare, cracked windshield in the parking lot. His parents find the thrift store heels, shriek, and curse possession. Call in counselors to shoot locusts down his throat and gnaw him see-through. Boy ghost learns raging silence, how to drown it like his grandpa did in glasses. Boy ghost whites with powder, dead hard body like a tomb, caught punching out the window of a drag club he would go to, his teeth shattered by police. Friends scatter from his moan. Boy ghost wishing he was missed, a cloud left floating below moon, something shapeless others pass through, who will never try to hold. So there's a lot of queer and trans folks really we're really fond of horror. Horror holds a very special place for us as we can identify with monsters, we can sort of find commonality with these ideas of feeling othered or feeling outcast. I think horror is also a space that's been very problematic for a lot of different groups of folks, for a variety of reasons, how it sort of presents gender, or presents sexuality, or presents race or class or anything like that. And there's one particular movie I think a lot about, which is called Sleepaway Camp from the 80s. It's part of one of these, a slew of sort of gender panic films where like the twist or the big reveal is that someone is not like the gender that they were assigned at birth. So thinking through sort of like the space for reclamation and sort of what we can do with these texts, what we can sort of learn from them still. So this is At the Midnight Show of Sleepaway Camp. And queers and I clear from the aisles, annoyed and damning the director, entering full takedown mode. A trans girl romps through teens' dark cabins, the panicked cry of she's a boy to give this slasher its shock twist. Today, the image world killers remains deadly, has only grown more mainstream. But others in the group push back, defend the film. All huddled at a Denny's, we listen to them fawn over the catharsis in a murder fest. Admit over plates of fries to dreams of wasting bullies, dropping angry beehives on assholes throwing slurs. From the ruckus of debate between our booths, the film's subversion sharpens. Critiques of gendered violence, forced dysphoria emerge. Can we hold both readings of the movie to be true? No, there's risk in our vindictive gore, but that it offers a resistance, that we might carry on with movie nights and diner talks, the uneventful thought of it, an arrow pointed at the next abuser's throat. Can't we promise to slay whoever creeps these woods and return after to the quiet trees? Another like weird obsession I have. This shares a lot of posts also is like myths, Greek myths, like what it means to have these texts also of a lot of monsters and a lot of also like very queer, very gay stories that were kind of told like, no, those two people are just really good friends. And sort of be presented with this and think about, the idea of something being so iterative, a myth is sort of, has its countless versions, its countless sort of retellings and gain so much power in that sort of individual experience with it. So this is a poem called Finsta of Icarus in Drag. He's in a photo clutching a razor, glare spotlighted on his wings. A Polaroid shot seconds after screaming, "Fuck you, Dad," to random cars, before climbing up a lamppost, shaved legs scraped and gray. Somewhere, a photo wearing stolen rouge, grin caging flocks of night jars. Caption, "Not your angel." Neck feasted on by blurred boy's lips, glitter rubbed off his chin. Somewhere, a photo in his oxblood slip against a table, one hand plucking orchids from a vase, back flat to the wall as offering, eyes glaring at the fanlight and refusing to surrender. Ever let this fake sun burn. One is called Fan Mail for the Headless Horseman. I can't read it in front of my parents anymore, so I'm gonna read it today. You all know why. In truth, I've never struggled to get head like you, but I won't go there. Like you, I've spent nights riding bareback, spooked a moan, chased men for what I lacked and couldn't find it. I know how absence can become you, how to get lost compensating. The cloaked neck hole and tall collar, that damned pumpkin lugged around. How you've been gawked at in the liquor store, the bank, just like my face in bearded drag. Do you tire wandering this darkness, ever want to settle? Stay inside and slip from legend? As a kid, I stayed in watching Sleepy Hollow every Halloween, till one year the DVD broke. I cried all night. I cried about so much then. Stale bread, face down swimming, rose thorns in my thumb. I thought God only offered pleasure, had abandoned all the rest. But what's my point here? Can we abandon what we've made ourselves? Could you ditch fog and wail to wear your premeth face? Could you be both things at once? Even as a kid, I wanted Tunis, dressed up like a swamp thing and a princess, till I cared what people said, could say to me. Potential violence is a potent weapon. Have you tried cleaving with a word? I excised girlhood, but kept searching, kept on hunting reclamation. Soon stopped looking in these woods. I willed a being out of absence and what possibility could pass through. I learned to be a full-blown phantom, to hold my head, its flaming, and let every ember singe. Just pivot over to do some translation. So I translate mostly from Swedish. Poet whose book I translated, Edith Södergran, was a, best way to sort of describe it is she was sort of like an Emily Dickinson-like figure for Finland-Swedish poetry. She's very sort of reclusive. She was sort of chronically ill most of her life, and also very much at odds with the literary establishment around her. She had that classic sort of framing as being like a crazy woman because she refused to do what the men around her told her what to do. So she's very much sort of positioned as this sort of pioneering modernist figure. Her poetry is still sort of right today, is very much sort of a monumental sort of presence within modern Scandinavian writing. But she didn't really enjoy that status or enjoy that sort of positioning throughout her life. She died very poor. She died at the age of 31 during the Russian Civil War, and is just not very translated into English a lot. So I just found it very important to sort of present her work to as many people as possible. But I think there's a lot we can learn. I think she's grappling a lot with in her work the confines of gender, this idea that like what it means to have a body, what it means to sort of have this body that's constantly legislated, constantly sort of held at odds with what you want. So the first poem is, it translates to modern woman. I am not a woman. I am Nutois. I'm a child, a tomboy, a bold decision. I'm a laughing streak of scarlet sun. I'm a net for all voracious fish. I'm a toast to women's glory. I am a step towards luck and towards ruin. I am a leap to freedom and to myself. I am the blood's whisper in a man's ear. I am the soul's ague, flesh's longing and refusal. I am a signpost pointing to a new paradise. I am a flame, gallant and searching. I am a pool, deep, yet daring, knee-high. I am fire and water in a free, honest union. This next one is called Love. My soul was a dress pale blue as the sky. I left it on a rock by the sea and came to you naked, looking like a woman. And like a woman, I sat at your table and drank a bowl of wine, breathed in the scent of roses. You found me beautiful, like someone you saw in a dream. I forgot it all, forgot my childhood and my homeland. I only knew that your touch kept me captive. Smiling, you held up a mirror and told me to look. I saw my shoulders were made of crumbling dust, saw my beauty was sick and I wanted to vanish. Hold me in your arms, so close that I need nothing. One is called The Low Shore. She was really into lakes. There's a lot of lakes in Scandinavia and also a lot of oceans. There's the Baltic. And she would spend a lot of time just sort of writing outside by herself. And then someone with, she had tuberculosis, so wasn't necessarily around a lot of people. This is called The Low Shore. These weightless birds high in the air don't soar for me, but the heavy boulders on the low shore hold motionless for me. I've sat at the base of these dreary hills, listening to wind conduct the pine-strong branches. I lie here on my stomach staring out. Everything is foreign, without memory. My thoughts don't belong to me. The air here is dank, and stones are slick. Everything dies and offers no laughter, save spring's cracked flute dropped in the sand. Do one more, a little happier, a little less, a little less of a downer. It's called Violet Twilights. These violet twilights I hold on to from my ancient past. Fair maidens frolicking with trotting centaurs, bright golden days with cheery glances. Only sunbeams pay homage to a woman's tender body. No man has yet arrived, has ever been, will ever be. Man's a trick mirror. The sun's daughter smashes on cliffs. Man's a lie, inscrutable to an ancient child. Man's a rotten fruit that proud lips scorn. Beautiful sisters, climb up on the highest rocks. We're all warriors, heroines, horsewomen, all innocent eyes, angelic brows, and ruddy faces, all heavy waves and untamed birds. We're the least expected, deepest red, tiger stripes and taut strings, dauntless stars. Cool. And then I'm gonna read some newer ones that are in conversation with the book, and then go back to the book. But this is a poem called What I Am, and it's after another poem by the same title by Terrence Hayes. I wander Target with a basket full of Nix and Venus razors, instant coffee, and canned chickpeas placed as cover. Do I want them to know what I am? I walk too fast to earn a name like Harry Styles Freak or Too Tall Girl, maybe simply one of them. I bookmark those them articles I never read. Do you have 5 tips for queer burnout? Driving through Taco Bell, nobody knows what I am. There's only 2 hot beans, jokes on sauce packets. I'm see-through till the cashier smiles, throws in a free Baja Blast, and I panic, becomes suddenly too solid. The ACLU wants money to protect what I am, and should I give more? Paris is burning, though I haven't watched live drag in years. I haven't met someone who knows Candy Darling or Polly Murray. Do I want them to know what I am? I brew the coffee, stack chickpeas in the cupboard, put my hands and face and heart away there too. So before I started reading, one of y'all mentioned Ethel Keane music video. And I have a poem that is a golden shovel, which is a form based off of Gwendolyn Brooks' poems, where the sort of the last word in the line is drawn from typically from a Gwendolyn Brooks poem or some other source. So you sort of the words on the end sort of create their own poem, and you're sort of trying to find the fun thing about writing is you already know what the last word of the line is going to be, so you're just trying to get there. But this is a sonnet golden shovel inspired by an Ethel Keane song. And it's called Distant Relations. The Ethel Keane song's Family Tree, if you want to figure out this one. Always in a heart sink when the doorbell rang, I'd pray for these kin of mine to soften unanswered. When an uncle crosses a line, leaves me limping and laughs. Cousin rattles loose all my bones in the den while TV football chatter muffles over begging. I've run from that clangor of blood. The side of my family that called me crash for my clumsiness, to say a body was theirs for breaking, for blessing. Grandpa would remind F and me to pray since our parents were godless, raged about me and my sibling not knowing his love. I'd picture heaven full of all the empty bottles, totaled cars. Even now, I can't say who among them will be judged, forgiven, ever confess. Honestly, I don't want to speak on it further, but I'll admit that I used to stash their rosaries in my dresser. I never learned how to use them, just knew that darkness was where they should be. Pop back over for myth again. So a lesser known sort of aspect of the myth of Phaeton, who was sort of a demigod that sort of got control of the sun's chariot in Greek mythology, and rode it out of control and had to be struck down, but he is sort of forgotten as having a lover that's sort of written out of the story, whose name is Cygnus. So Cygnus was left alone after Phaeton died and sat by a river for many years, sort of grieving the loss of his lover, and then was eventually turned into a swan by Apollo. But that didn't really help. He was still very sad. So then they made him a constellation. So now there's a constellation called Cygnus, which is the swan. And this is called Cygnus Speaks to Phaeton. In this version, I arrive first as an egg, gem-laden as an opalescent Fabergé, an object you must care for, warm. I'm born outside of loss. You nestle me in guest room blankets and ignore me till I gleam. Soon neighbors ask around. In this version, you crave notice still. Crowds form in the living room and mutter about myths. You egg them on. And I perform for you, shine godly light, conjure daybreak songs. Applause roars and you grin, proclaim yourself sun bearer. I hope this way you stay from rains. The months pass with new fame. You polish me and call it love. The time soon comes, however. When we're alone, I crack the shell. My black beak crushes jewel. Head emerges, sneaking neck that swivels but won't meet your gaze. My starry wings stretch wide. I fly around the room. You laugh, but this show isn't for you. I break a window and glide over the sloped driveway. Ignore cries to return. I trend up through the clouds to become cosmic, the evening's preemie fixture. In this version, I'm lost treasure. I won't stay to watch you burn. I've listened to sonnets in the last couple of years, so I'm doing another sonnet. But I'm really into sonnets, I was really into birds, which is like a very poet thing to do. But I was living in Arkansas for a while, and there's just so many birds that I'm originally from Southern California. We have birds, but it's very different to like see a cardinal like against like, a white like snow. Like it's just a very sort of remarkable experience. So I had to write it. This is called bird watching. Now I'm a person that can spot a nut thatch, point to grosbeaks, have taught myself the clowning chip of juncos at the window, know a raven from a crow and adore both. I owe that love to Arkansas. To think I never gawked at life with wings before, had taken flocks for granted, and even thought that birds were pesky. I wouldn't let myself be charmed. I call home now and recount grackles unsettling from fields, cowbirds inspecting how I walked from the store. There's flattery in scores of something watching to have caught their gaze. There's a reason to survive. I doom scroll news, get spot off by caws and trills, worried of my spiraling those days. A speckled hawk and cardinal teach me that feathers think of drag bands. Last week, I brought my love to see confetti specks of eagles glide, forgot to speak of feeling low. The urge to peck flies from my wrists. And now I know I ought to live with my eyes peeled for flight, grinning and eager, ready to talk about the wonder I must stick around to see, to not feel sorry for it. No. Back to the book. Sticking with the theme of moving, this one is called Since Moving from the Beach. Since moving from the beach, what I miss most are boys who'd rid their skateboards past me on the strand, eyes bright as new bearings, warm with gloam. Miss boys who'd swerve from tourists stopped dead center, dodge the sandy dogs off leashes, jump crushed vape pods. How they reached warp speed despite all that tried to stop them. I miss the boy with red wine hair and Texas chainsaw calf tattoo I watched almost do a kickflip, who biffed the landing, cracked his phone, seemed happy being spectacle, who seemed to part his lips the instant we passed and invite me in his mouth, who in that instant let me live. I miss how longing starts inside an instant, lives forever as a memory. I miss boys making scenes the way I never could, who make me think I could someday. Boys not offering their hearts, but giving them and moving on. Who called that living? Life that I want to. Sticking with our Arkansas theme. So I was in Arkansas for about 4 years. While I was there, sort of was the build up, sort of this has been going on for decades, but sort of the initial sort of buildup of anti-trans legislation sort of reached a fever pitch that has not gone down from in the spring of 2021 when Arkansas became the first state to attempt to outlaw medical care for trans youth. And happening in the spring, that was also kind of around this time when the wildflowers were blooming. It was my first time being there at that time, and the juxtaposition between sort of that natural defiance and this moment of despair just really stuck with me. So this poem came out of it. It's another sonnet. And this is Arkansas Advanced Healthcare for Trans Youth. Ozark flowers coat the roadside with a quiet bloom of blue and violet. The yellow bursts find room between the grasses, grab at rays of falling light. I look out driving home and ponder how, despite rain and grazing deer, resilience lives. Their denial of removal. Blossoms last till morning, bring a smile, show me how much I need stems cracking slabs of concrete, spring-struck life. Parked, I pick scabs off my arm and picture our survival, how flowers here resemble folks, so beautiful they cannot help but dance alone in quiet rooms, who sway together, knit a field nobody else can sight. Night swells, but we don't stop taking shafts of deserved sun. We hold our brilliance in dim hours. Another monster poem. Just because we moved away from the monsters a little bit. This one is called Portrait as Werewolf. Tucked behind the backwoods in a borrowed car, we grip the doors, pass silver coins between our mouths. I wear a new white dress and flower crown, rhinestones beaded to my snout. Flash a fang for you and hope to graduate from myth. Watch me strip the want from bones. Lovely beast, my trying wolves to beauty. What's a monster but a body deemed impossible, with glossy fur and pale thighs quivering at your touch? As a child, I felt this bite sink in and tried stopping it. For years, tongued bullets, cracked enamel, kept on gurgling a dead name, kept this body graceless. But one can only stifle howling for so long, deny entry to their lair. Here woods blaze with murk light, spark a gleam against your claw and offer prey. I lick my lips, kiss the moon. It took so long to get here. And I'll do 2 more. One more myth. You know about myth again. This is a myth of a person's categorically sort of called a monster, but I think people sort of typically forget the Medusa myth. Medusa is the myth is the victim of sexual assault. And sort of a fact that gets erased or visible inside a lot of myths. So this is Confession from Medusa's Head. Coming to in pangs and cicatrix, in absence, without end. Soul off on the tongue dissolved while eyes adjust to burlaps dark. Lips gun the myth, but I'm left trauma, twitch and trigger. These braids hung limp and venom dry. A fury racks the teeth that gnash this bag. I seethe, but still can't afterwards. This hacking can't coax Pegasus from a neck wound, gape my trachea, birth a vengeance. I haven't tried men since, still feel him pull my hair to wield me, become weapon. My fang that tries to gore his hand splits a lover's skin instead. Remind me how to want before cracked jaw or dragging scales, before ceramic smashed on temple floor, inside an ICU. Now I'm a stare that shards each boy. Now each broad-necked warrior believes my safety's in attack, draws villainous from terror. Dropped, I thud like an anchor tossed in marsh. A burial, a skull dragged down by all that it can't vessel. So I'm a huge ABBA fan. My family is full of ABBA fans, which makes sense in a horror movie poetry collection. But I think that's also part of it, like that contrast in joy and terror, sort of getting all the emotions in is important. So this poem is called When Meryl Streep Sings Dancing Queen in Mamma Mia, which is one of my movies. I will fight you. One of my favorite movies. So when Meryl Streep sings Dancing Queen in Mamma Mia, village women flock down to the island's shore in streams of swirling skirts, tossed kerchiefs and aprons taken by the breeze. And all of it's timed perfectly to swelling synths crescendo. I picture the women in my family here, women in my family scoring parts in the showstopper and crammed into panning shots so audiences spot them. Each skips in spite of stiffened knees, tosses up her stove-marked hands. Each of them is owed that joy. Because women in my family grin bright enough to outshine Meryl, so much that she hands lead off to my mother, stands back while she basks in Aegean teal. Here, my mother isn't sick, has no injection to time out. Here, every aunt and grandma radiates a disco glow that burns away the years, the too small house, the loneliness, the shoulder aches from decades cutting hair. House dresses swapped for sequin tops, bell bottoms flared to block out X's, rheumatism, thirst for drink. I feel a Frisian tingle hearing them croon, when you get the chance, knowing it's not sighed at husbands asked to run one more errand. Rather, it's a promise to the water. When timing's right, the women in my family will pirouette across the waves, take off, and keep twirling. Each one so full of light, each having the time of her life. Do one more. And sticking with our fun water theme, this is draft message to my sibling with heart surgery. I watched the video you sent of a roommate's cat stealing chicken nuggets. Cracked up his paws, swiped at the tray. I know all is well with you. It took so long to realize we never learned to speak of joy. Instead, send clips to make us smile. All day, I've thought about care packages to send, but nothing seems to fit. Nothing I would send fits in a box. Would last 1,000 miles to where I left you. It took so long to realize we both hoped to escape from home and gender. Yesterday, I saw red admirals flutter on a spice bush and tried filming them, since you two float in graceful light. Amid bruised ribs and drain tubes, you shimmer iridescent. You've taught me how to dapple and be larger than our family's worry. Let me gift you a grove of saplings, young trunks primed for the future. Watch them rise and take in rays, leaves dancing in the breeze. From here, we'll run off to a beach, the same one where you'd bury me in chest-high sand, then tease of leaving. This time, we'll keep running past the waves, over them, in spite of them, stay at each other's sides.